People sometimes think technology just automatically gets better every year, but it actually doesn't. It only gets better if smart people work like crazy to make it better. That's how any technology actually gets better. And by itself, technology, if people don't work on it, actually will decline. I mean, you can look at the history of civilizations, many civilizations, and look at, say, ancient Egypt, where they were able to build these incredible pyramids, and then they basically forgot how to build pyramids. There's a lot of discussion of like this problem or that problem, and a lot of people are sad about the future, and that they're pessimistic, and I think this is not great. I mean, we really want to wake up in the morning and look forward to the future. We want to be excited about what's going to happen, and life cannot simply be about sort of solving one miserable problem after.
Well, I'm actually incredibly excited about the future of India. I think India has more promise than any large country in the world.
The takeaways from the meeting.
Takeaways from the meeting. He really cares about India because he's pushing us to make significant investments in India, which is something that we intend to do, and we're just trying to figure out the right timing. In a nutshell, it was a fantastic meeting with the Prime Minister, and I like him quite a lot. He visited our Fremont factory several years ago, and so we've now known each other for a while. I can say he really wants to do the right thing for India. He wants to be open. He wants to be supportive of new companies, and obviously, but at the same time, make sure it accrues to India's advantage, which is, obviously that's the job. I'm saying I am a fan of Modi. So well, I think there's a tremendous amount of potential for all three pillars of the sustainable energy future.
What attracts me most about China's 5-year plan is the tremendous commitment to a low-carbon economy and ultimately to a sustainable energy economy. In the 5-year plan, China is committed to reach peak carbon emissions sooner than 2030 and to have a sustainable energy economy by 2060. These are very aggressive goals, and I think they're great goals, I wish more countries actually had these goals. I'm very confident about Tesla's future in China. The Chinese economy, I think, is going to do extremely well over the next decade and will become the biggest economy in the world. And it's also committed to a sustainable energy future, and Tesla is doing both of those things. So we're building cars. We have China, I think long-term will be our biggest market, both where we make the most number of vehicles and where we have the most number of customers. I would like to strike an optimistic note and say that I'm very confident that the future in China is going to be great, and that China is headed towards being the biggest economy in the world and a lot of prosperity in the future. And this 5-year plan is going to be a part of making that prosperity happen.
Yeah, exactly. So, it took me a while to sort of realize this, that in order to solve self-driving, you really needed to solve real-world AI. And at the point at which you solve real-world AI for a car, which is really a robot on 4 wheels, you can then generalize that to a robot on legs as well. The two hard parts, I think, it's not obviously companies like Boston Dynamics have shown that it's possible to make quite compelling, sometimes alarming robots.
Right.
So from a sensors and actuator standpoint, it's certainly been demonstrated by many that it's possible to make a humanoid robot. The things that are currently missing are enough intelligence for the robot to navigate the real world and do useful things without being explicitly instructed. So the missing things are basically real world intelligence and scaling up manufacturing. Those are two things that Tesla is very good at, and so then we basically just need to design the specialized actuators and sensors that are needed for a humanoid robot. People have no idea. This is going to be bigger than the car.
One of the most significant ways is self-driving. So we've been putting a lot of effort into self-driving technology for cars. You don't see it quite as much in Europe because we first have to make it work in the US before we increase the complexity of trying to make it elsewhere in the world. But I think we're quite close to having the car be fully autonomous. So for example, like right now, I'm in Austin, and if I wanted to drive, say, to the airport, the car could take me to the airport with no interventions. And all it's using are digital neural nets, in other words, artificial intelligence, and cameras. So there's no LiDAR, radar, nothing. And in fact, if you think about how humans drive cars, humans are biological neural nets, and we use eyes. So it's the eyes and biological neural nets. The analog is digital. The analog for digital is cameras and digital neural nets. This is working remarkably well. But it has been quite difficult to do this because it turns out that in order for this to work, the car has to really be quite fully intelligent. Really, as a subset, for example, it has to learn how to read everything and how to assess intention among drivers and pedestrians. So you're end up creating sort of a baby artificial general intelligence to solve this. But this will obviously be extremely profound. And obviously, I'm talking about automotive here. I'll get into the broader question in a minute. But the average use of a passenger vehicle is only about 10 hours per week out of 100 hours. At the point at which it is autonomous, I think you would see probably a third of the hours being used because it would be like a taxi.
We make a car that has no steering wheels and pedals. And if we need to accelerate that time, we can always just delete parts. Easy. We'll have over 1 million Tesla cars on the road with full self-driving hardware, feature complete at a reliability level that we would consider that no one needs to pay attention. Here is we're going to reach combined production of 10,000 a week between SX and 3. Next year, we'll expand the product line with Model Y and Semi, and we expect to have the first operating robo-taxis next year with no one in them. Not in all jurisdictions because we won't have regulatory approval everywhere, but I'm confident we'll have at least regulatory approval somewhere literally next year.
People should be optimistic about the future. Humanity will solve sustainable energy. It will happen. If we are, continue to push hard, the future is bright and good from an energy standpoint. And then it will be possible to also use that energy to do carbon sequestration. It takes a lot of energy to pull carbon out of the atmosphere, because in putting it in the atmosphere, it releases energy. So now, obviously, in order to pull it out, you need to use a lot of energy. But if you've got a lot of sustainable energy from wind and solar, you can actually sequester carbon, so you can reverse the CO2 parts per million of the atmosphere and oceans. And also, you can really have as much fresh water as you want. Earth is mostly water. We should call Earth water. It's 70% water by surface area. There are three elements to a sustainable energy future. One is obviously sustainable energy generation, which is primarily wind and solar. There's also hydro, geothermal. I'm actually pro-nuclear. I think nuclear is fine. But it's going to be primarily solar and wind as the primary generators of energy. The second part is you need batteries to store the solar and wind energy because the sun doesn't shine all the time, the wind doesn't blow all the time. So you need a lot of stationary battery packs. And then you need electric transport. So electric cars, electric planes, boats, and then ultimately, it's not really possible to make electric rockets, but you can make the propellant used in rockets using sustainable energy.
Right. The automotive industry has been living with 12 volts for a very long time, a century roughly. I think it started off as 6 volts, and then they needed a more powerful starter motor, and then they doubled it to 12 volts, although it's actually more like 13.7 volts.
You're right, absolutely.
Yeah, and the bus voltage actually varies a lot for those, since there are probably some electrical engineers in the audience. It's like 12 volts is a very rough approximation, but it's really kind of a arbitrary low voltage. And if you look at, say, power Ethernet, it's running at 50 volts or roughly 48 volts. And we set it at 48 volts because anything really above that, you start to run into regulatory concerns. And power Ethernet is, like I said, roughly at that level. But the advantage of obviously quadrupling the voltage is that you can substantially reduce how much copper or conductor is used in the car. So you can use very small copper wires for, it's roughly roughly a quarter, not exactly a quarter, but roughly a quarter as much copper is needed for 48 volts as for 12. So I think it's a logical move. That's really the next step for the low voltage architecture for the car. I think ultimately, long term, all cars will.
Look, I don't want to give away, much more than what I've said publicly, except that the Roadster will be a collaboration between SpaceX and Tesla. So, you can expect some rockety stuff there.
A flying car?
Maybe. It's not out of the question.
Go on.
No, I gotta reserve the cool stuff for the, when we actually unveil it. But it's gonna be really cool. It's gonna have some rocket technology in it. I think really the only way to do something that's cooler than the Cybertruck is to combine SpaceX and Tesla technology to create something that's not even really a car.
Then what would it be?
Something that's never existed before. A collaboration between SpaceX and Tesla. So, you can expect some rockety stuff there.
A flying car?
Maybe. It's gonna have some rocket technology in it. I think really the only way to do something that's cooler than the Cybertruck is to combine SpaceX and Tesla technology to create something that's not even really a car.
There are certainly some big risks that humanity faces. I think the population collapse is a really big deal that I wish more people would think about, because the birth rate is far below what's needed to sustain civilization at its current level, and there's obviously we need to take action on climate sustainability, which is being done, and we need to secure the future of consciousness by being a multi-planet species. We need to address it's important to take whatever actions we can think of to address the existential risks that affect the future of consciousness. Well, I think if you want the future to be good, you must make it so. Take action to make it good, and it will be.